Hello again, my DIY loving friends. I'm Sarah, and this is Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. Today, we're diving into the world of Dollar Tree magic with our trusty tumbling tower blocks. Who knew high-end decor could start at just $1.25? Stick around as we transform these humble blocks into 3 stunning DIY projects that will have your home looking like $1,000,000 without spending it. So what are we waiting for? Let's go transform some tumbling tower blocks together. For this DIY, we'll be using a total of 43 of the brown tumbling tower blocks, of course, from Dollar Tree. And so to begin with, we are making sets of 3 blocks glued end to end. I am using the Super Glue wood glue, also from Dollar Tree, to attach them. We'll be making a total of 6 of these 3 block sets, all attached end to end, and we're using a total of 18 blocks for this so far. Then I'm making sets of 2 blocks, also attached end to end. We'll need 12 of these 2 block sets, which are using 24 blocks. And combined with the 6 sets of 3 we've already made, we've used 42 brown tumbling tower blocks in total. I grabbed this bamboo cutting board from Dollar Tree, and using a small screwdriver, I'm going to distress the board, just really grinding and pulling that screwdriver across it. I want to really beat it up and make it look old and distressed, just filled with character. Like it's lived a life and it's seen a few things, like me, and maybe you. You know what I mean. And once the board is adequately beat up, I take some folk art antique wax, which I will link for you below, and paint the whole cutting board using the wax. And since we've distressed it, the wax gets caught in all those little scratches and marks that we made, and those look darker in contrast to the rest of the cutting board. And the whole two-tone look gives the board some really nice dimension. I use a dry paper towel to rub off the excess wax, and that also helps deposit more of the wax into those scratches and grooves as well. I paint both sides and the edges so that whole board is painted with the wax. I'm using this folk art black chalk paint, which I will link for you below, and a dry chip brush. And I distress paint over all the sets of brown tumbling tower blocks, applying the paint to all sides and all the edges of the block sets, starting with the 6 3-block sets and working my way through the 12 2-block sets as well, until all the sets of blocks have a rough distress coat of black chalk paint that are covering all sides, giving them a nice beat up black and brown look. To begin assembling the project, I place 1 set of 3 blocks along the bottom and place 1 set of 2 blocks on both ends of the 3-block sets, creating a large U shape, as you see here. I do my best to keep all the angles as straight as I can, but you know those Dollar Tree blocks, they are far from perfectly straight. So I just do my best. And we'll be doing that with all 6 of the 3-block sets. Essentially, we're creating 6 large U shapes with them and then setting them aside to fully dry. Once dry, I stand all the U shapes up and place a single block between each one, and that's just as a spacer. They are not part of the design, they won't stay there. I'm using dabs of E6000 glue on each of the tops of the 2-block sets, and then I carefully place my cutting board on top of the dabs of glue, centering it in the middle as best I can by eyeballing it. It was not perfectly centered, but that's okay. It's crafting, not science. And this is my rustic tumbling tower block and cutting board riser. I love the rustic distressing on both the beat up bamboo cutting board top as well as the black distress painted brown block bottom. Both paint techniques give this DIY a more upscale look and feel, in my opinion. The spacing between the 6 legs on the bottom really make it visually interesting, and they are functional by creating a shelf under the riser as well. A stunning use of those infamous brown tumbling tower blocks. For this DIY, starting with 8 of the natural color wood tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, I create a square shape with 2 blocks on each of the 4 sides. I'm using super glue wood glue, also from Dollar Tree. I create the first corner of the square and then build out the rest of the square from that point. And once I finish, I repeat the same process and create a second identical square using another 8 blocks for a total of 16 blocks that are used so far. Next, I want to build up the 4 corners of the bottom square. So I place 2 blocks on the first corner, followed by 2 more blocks directly on top of those. And I'm going to repeat that same procedure 3 more times to build up all 4 corners of that square evenly. I place some glue at the tops of those 4 corners so I can then attach the top square on top of them to create this cube shape. And in a perfect world, these would fit together perfectly. However, in the world of imperfect Dollar Tree wood blocks, we're not that lucky. So I do my best to adjust all those corners to fit together as best I can. I have this wood square from Dollar Tree, and I've already used a pencil and ruler to draw lines going diagonally in both directions. I've spaced the lines apart by 1 centimeter, creating all these diagonal diamond shapes. And now, using a small screwdriver and metal ruler, I'm going to scrape over all those lines I created to make a raised texture of those little diamonds all over the entire surface of the wood square, as you see me doing here, creating this awesome textured pattern on the entire surface. And if you can't tell, I was pretty happy with how they worked out. I'm using some black acrylic paint to paint the top textured surface of the square, making sure to get into all those little nooks and crannies on that surface for full coverage. I also painted all the edges of the square because some of the edges on those Dollar Tree squares are pretty rough and unattractive. Then I put the square aside to dry. For the tumbling tower block cube, I am using some folk art antique wax, as well as a dry paper towel to rub off the excess wax. I'm going to paint the entire outside and the entire inside of the cube, making sure that the cube is completely painted with the wax from every angle before setting it aside for it to dry. And then because I decided I really hated those rough wood edges on the Dollar Tree wood square, off camera, I had grabbed some wood craft sticks from Dollar Tree and cut them to size to fit over the 4 side edges of the square. I also painted them with the same antique wax as I painted the tower block cube. I wanted my textured patterned surface to have a glossy finish, so I'm using this clear gloss polyacrylic sealer from Minwax, which I will link for you below to get a glossy shine. I paint the whole surface as well as the edges with the sealer, and then I let that dry completely overnight. And because even with the glossy sealer on those rough edges, I still didn't like the look of them, I used some wood glue to attach the cut and stained craft sticks I had made earlier and covered up all 4 edges on the sealed textured wood square. Lastly, I covered the top of the cube with some more wood glue, and then I carefully center my textured square over the cube, and then I'm going to set the whole thing aside to dry. And this is my two-toned textured pattern riser or stand, and I'm so happy with how this textured top turned out. I love the texture. It kind of reminds me of a snakeskin look or something like that. Personally, I feel like I've never seen something quite like it before, and in my opinion, it's a unique and original look and definitely impressive for a Dollar Tree wood project, but you be the judge. For this DIY, we're using a grand total of 53 of the natural color tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree for the entire project, and the super glue wood glue also from Dollar Tree. I'm making sets of 3 blocks, all glued side by side, as you see here, and I'm going to need 13 of these 3-block sets, so 39 of the 53 total blocks are these 13 sets of 3 blocks. To begin assembling, I place 4 of these 3-block sets spaced evenly apart and glue a 5th 3-block set in the middle of the 4 as you see here. The 4 on the bottom are facing the horizontal direction, which is across, and all the rest will be vertical direction going up and down. Using some loose blocks as spacers to hold up this second level of blocks, I then place 1 set beneath the middle set and 1 above it the same way as that middle set of 3 blocks. Using some more loose blocks as spacers, I add 3 more sets of blocks, one on one end, following the same lines as the 3 sets in the middle that we had just added. Then I repeat the same layout on the other side with the 3 remaining sets of blocks and allow it all some time to dry. While that piece dries, I take 14 more blocks and make a base, starting with 4 blocks attached end to end. Then 3 blocks attached end to end, and 3 more blocks attached end to end. And then another 4 blocks attached end to end, and that's a total of 53 blocks altogether. Then I create a rectangle shape with the 2 4-block sets across from one another and the 2 3-block sets across from one another, and then set it aside to dry. I mixed equal parts hot water and strong instant coffee to create a stain to paint all my pieces, and first I'm painting the underside of the block squares with this coffee mixture, giving it a nice warm brown tone, but it's still leaving all the wood grain to show through. Then I flip it over and paint the coffee stain onto the front side of the squares the exact same way. I paint the coffee onto all those sides and edges, making sure to cover the sides from all angles to get all those little nooks and crannies evenly. I paint the rectangular base with the same instant coffee the exact same way, on the outside, on the inside, and on all the edges. Lastly, I place my set of squares on top of the rectangular base and secure it in place with some wood glue, placing something heavy on top of it to stabilize it. And this is my tumbling tower block square trivet or large coaster. And yes, I know it has some definite similarities to a wood pallet, but I think the square shapes and multi-levels give it just a little more pizzazz over a plain old wood palette, just my opinion. I love the natural wood color from the coffee stain, and I even think it has some possible wall art possibilities to it. Simple, but with a little bit of rustic elegance. And there you have it, my friends, 3 stunning and easy DIYs that prove that you don't need to splurge to get that high-end look. If you enjoyed crafting with me today, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more budget-friendly decor magic. Got a favorite DIY from today's video or your very own Dollar Tree hack? Share it in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, remember that together we're making the world a more beautiful place, one DIY at a time.